Donald Trump departed for the G7 summit today with all of the enthusiasm of a root canal patient, apparently stalling before getting on the plane to fly to the conference of world leaders he's reportedly dreading. He did a long and freewheeling Q&A with reporters and made almost a dozen different headlines on a wide range of topics, from his frustration with our allies to the whereabouts of the First Lady to Dennis Rodman's skill as a basketball player. Take a listen.
European Union treats us very unfairly. Canada, very unfairly. Mexico, very unfairly. With that being said, I think we'll probably very easily make a deal.
Were you serious about really not needing to prepare for the G summit?
No, I didn't say that. I said I've been preparing all my life. I'm not above the law. I never want anybody to be above the law. But the pardons are a very positive thing for a president. I think you see the way I'm using them. And yes, I do have an absolute right to pardon myself. First Lady is great, right there. She had a big operation. That was close to a 4-hour operation. And she's doing great. Right there. No, he wasn't, but I like Dennis. A great rebounder. You know, when you think Dennis was a great rebounder and he wasn't, relatively speaking, that tall. Speaking of sports stars. The power to pardon is a beautiful thing. You got to get it right. You got to get the right people. I am looking at Muhammad Ali, but those are the famous people.
So my table unanimously agreed with the president on Dennis Rodman's basketball skills, but there's a lot to unpack there. From one comment from the president this morning had a sobering effect the world over: his out-of-the-blue embrace of Russia.
I would recommend, and it's up to them, but Russia should be in the meeting. It should be a part of it. You know, whether you like it or not, and it may not be politically correct, but we have a world to run. And in the G7, which used to be the G8, they threw Russia out. They should let Russia come back in, because we should have Russia at the negotiating table.
This, of course, comes after Trump has spent days railing against our closest allies and trading partners. And as Susan Glasser puts it in The New Yorker, Trump's America First policy is really turning out to be America alone. Joining us now, Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for The New York Times, Susan Glasser, now a writer for The New Yorker, and Rick Stengel, former Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy. Susan, let me start with you and your fantastic piece, and let me read a little more from it. You're right. Ever since Trump took office, America's allies have desperately sought to avoid this moment. Over the last year and a half, though, many of them have come to realize with growing dread that it was inevitable. The rift between the world's great democracies that Trump's election portended is coming to pass, and it is about far more than Iran policy, obscure trade provisions, or whether Germany spends 2% of its GDP on NATO. Many senior European officials speak of it, as one ambassador to Washington did to me recently, as nothing less than a crisis of the West.
You know, Nicole, I wrote that before Donald Trump this morning said that Russia should rejoin the G7 and make it the G8 again. You know, I'm struck by the fact that this really is our this is not a drill moment. For a year and a half, we've been talking about what would be the consequences of the unraveling of the world order. And I felt, listening to President Trump this morning, that what we were hearing was an American president who fundamentally has a very, very different view of the world than his predecessors, both Democratic and Republican. This is a president this morning who basically said, I don't really care about democracies or human rights or even kind of rules of the road and a law-based approach to the world. What I want is great powers, regardless of what kind of actors they are on the world stage, to sit down and carve up the world among themselves. It's a very, 19th century view of things, although I'm not sure that Donald Trump would phrase it that way.
And Peter Baker, it hasn't been without consequence. He's now been acting this way for long enough for our allies to have adjusted. I want to read you French President Emmanuel Macron's tweet this morning. America may not mind being isolated, but neither do we mind leaving America out. The American president may not mind being isolated. We don't mind signing a 6-country agreement if need be, because these 6 countries represent values. They represent an economic market which has the weight of history behind it and which is now a true international force. Let me just speak to the elephant in the room. Obviously, I worked in the Bush White House. You covered it when the Iraq War caused a rift over counterterror policy, over a lot of foreign policy. Americans don't like when their president carries out a foreign policy that isolates them from the rest of the world, especially when that isolation is from our best and longest and most loyal friends on the world stage.
Well, that's right. But that rift in the 2000s that you talk about, I mean, it was very serious, obviously, but it was over essentially one major issue, which is to say the Iraq War. That was the essence of that rift. It didn't mean that George W. Bush, the president, was going around trash-talking his allies. He didn't do that.
And let me just say, to the contrary, I mean, you and I both traveled around the world with him, but I was in the meetings, you know, where privately they agreed on 90% of what they had to deal with, trade and other issues. But my point was, when they had a disagreement, it made Americans feel isolated, and that is very uncomfortable for a lot of Americans.
Well, I think the point is that this dispute between President Trump and our allies is different. And the difference is it is over a whole world view. It is over our understanding of the liberal international order, the rules-based order, is our understanding of how the system of globalization is working. We are now on a very different page from them on a broad philosophy of how the world should run, not just over a particular issue like the Iraq War, big as that was. And I think that's what you're seeing going on right now in Canada.
Let me read you a little more from Susan's piece, because it's fantastic. She goes on to say, as Trump's
a great piece.
I read it on your Twitter feed, Peter Baker. I found it from you. As Trump's dramatic moves have played out this spring and hardened into a presidential narrative of American victimization at the hands of free-riding allies, senior government officials in London, Berlin, and other European capitals, and in Washington have told me they now worry that Trump may be a greater immediate threat to the alliance than even authoritarian great power rivals such as Russia and China. Equally striking is the extent to which America's long-term allies have no real strategy for coping with the challenges posed by such an American president. Rick Stengel, where do we go from here?
So what you're describing and what Susan described in that great phrase is a crisis of the West.
Right.
And Vladimir Putin has been opposed to the West and Western values since he came into office. Here's how he sees the world. Everything the Allies did after World War II, at Bretton Woods and the creation of all these institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, etc., all of it was organized against Russia. Everything the alliance did after the fall of the Berlin Wall, where they brought the Baltics into NATO, where they expanded NATO, where they set up missile systems, was against Russia. His dream is to have an American president who will unravel the Western world order, which he sees as a conspiracy against Russia. So the return on his investment for supporting Donald Trump is very high.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.